Hey everybody, it's Rykard back again with another black and white Pokemon analysis. Today, we're going to be discussing the Blizzard Pokemon known as Baibanira. So let's get started by taking a look at its typing, abilities, and stats. So first off, this Pokemon is a Mono Ice type, which is generally considered to be one of the worst mono typings in the game, unfortunately. And the reason for this is because it only resists ice, and then everything else hits it for neutral except for fire, fighting, rock, and steel, which all hit it for super effective damage. So it's really unfortunate that it doesn't have more resistances. So that's kind of one handicap that this Pokemon just has to deal with, unfortunately. As for the abilities, the first one that it gets in actual gameplay is known as Ice Body, which essentially works as leftovers when there's hail up, meaning that it'll be recovering a little bit of your HP at the end of every turn as long as there is hail up. And this works great because this Pokemon obviously learns hail, and it can also be used in combination with Abomasnow, which will set up hail for the entire battle essentially, unless your opponent sets up some kind of weather of its own. As for its next ability, which it gets in the Dream World, it is known as Breakable Armor, which is a unique little ability that makes it so that every time you're hit by a physical attack, your defense is lowered by one stage, but your speed is increased by one stage. So that works out really well because this Pokemon actually has pretty good defenses and not so amazing speed. So it kind of makes it really good in a sense if you could use this ability to its fullest potential. But as for its stats, first, it gets 71 HP coupled with 85 defense and 95 special defense, which, as I said before, is actually really good defenses to an extent. Unfortunately, obviously, being a mono ice type, it's not going to be resisting much, but those are actually really usable defensive stats, and you will see later in a set how I can actually make use of those pretty effectively. As for its attacking stats, it gets 95 physical attack and 110 special attack. So either way, whether you want to go physical or special, it is entirely possible with this Pokemon because of them both being pretty high stats. And as for its speed, it is at only 79, meaning you won't be outspeeding a ton of things, but it's still quick enough to get an advantage on slower opponents, and also with a breakable armor to your speed, you will be faster than a lot of Pokemon that have higher base speed than you because you'll be at +1. But with that, let's take a look at a few sets for this Pokemon. So this first set is going to be essentially a hail stalling set. So we're going to give Baibanira a calm nature to increase its spec defense but decrease its physical attack. And then we're going to be using the ability Ice Body so that we can recover a little bit of HP every turn with the hail up. As for the EVs, we're going to put 252 into HP to max out your HP, 252 into Spec D to max out your special defense, and then 4 EVs into speed just so you can have that extra chance to outspeed something that may have the same base speed as you but no speed investment. As for the item, we're going to be using leftovers to work in conjunction with the Ice Body ability so that you're recovering a ton of HP, or not a ton, but a bunch of HP at the end of every turn. As for the moves, the first one is either going to be two things. Either you're going to use Hail because you aren't using a Hail team that sets up with Abomasnow, or you're going to be using Weather Ball if you have a Hail inducer like Abomasnow on your team. Because obviously Weather Ball takes on the trait of whatever weather is up. So this will work because it'll be a really good 100 base power stab ice type move with Hail up. And now I know Blizzard has more power than this, but you only get 8 uses of Blizzard with its max PP, so Weather Ball is definitely a better option if you want this Pokemon to be lasting longer or being able to do more damage in the battle. As for the next move, we're going to be using Toxic to obviously wear your opponent down slowly. And then with that, we're going to be making use of Acid Armor, and this is actually one of two sharply increasing defense moves this Pokemon learns because it also learns Iron Defense. So it's really fortunate that it can make its physical defense really high with those two moves, and also it breaks over 300 with a Calm Nature and Max Spec D. So this Pokemon is very resilient with a set like this, and will be able to last hopefully a long time in battle. As for the moves, or the last move, we're going to be using Rest, obviously, to recover even more HP if we find ourselves getting low. The only Pokemon that obviously wall this set, though, are Steel types because they resist the Weather Ball if Hail is up, and they obviously can't be toxic. So that's an unfortunate flaw in this set, but against anything else that is not a Steel type, this will actually work out really well and prove to be fairly difficult to take down. As for this next set, it will kind of be characteristic of what a lead Baibanira might be like. So first we're going to give it an Adamant Nature to increase its physical attack but decrease its special attack, and then we're going to be using the ability Breakable Armor. As for the EVs, we're going to put 4 into HP, 252 into attack to give you your max attack, and 252 into speed to give you your max speed with an Adamant Nature. As for the item, since we are going to be a lead, we're going to be making use of a Focus Sash so that we can at least survive one attack from your opponent. As for the moveset, the first one listed is going to be Ice Shard because it's a good priority move, and with an Adamant Nature and high investment or EV investment into physical attack, it will be able to do a bunch of damage to at least something that your opponent has as a lead. As for the next move, we're going to be using Mirror Coat in the chance that your opponent is using a special attacking lead like an Azelf or something like that. So if the Azelf is in, obviously it's going to want to probably Flamethrower or Fire Blast you, and then you can obviously retaliate that by predicting that by using a Mirror Coat, and that'll pretty much take it out. And if it is carrying a Focus Sash, you have the priority with Ice Shard, so then that'll take out the Azelf before it can do anything else. So there you go, your opponent's lead is down if that is the case. As for the next move, if you do have an advantage in the matchup for your lead situation, like you're up against something that would be very weak to ice, you can obviously predict a switch and set up a light screen so that now you have increased spec defense. And then lastly, if your opponent obviously can hit you down to your Focus Sash, hopefully with a physical attack, Breakable Armor will activate, thus allowing your speed to be increased, and then make your explosion that much more reliable since you'll have higher speed and be able to hopefully outspeed whatever comes in to take the hit. And unfortunately in this generation, and kind of fortunately I guess, Explosion no longer halves defense when it hits, so it's just a 250 base power normal move. It's not like 500 essentially, because it would normally be having your your opponent's defense, which it now isn't. So just keep that in mind, that Explosion is not nearly as powerful as it was in the previous generation. As for this last set, it is going to be a pure attacking set for Baibanira. So first we're going to give it a Modest Nature to increase its special attack but decrease its physical attack, and we're going to be using the ability Breakable Armor again to have that chance to increase your speed by one stage and thus allow you to hurt your opponent more effectively, since you will probably be outspeeding the majority of threats that might come your way. As for the EVs, we're going to put 4 into HP, 252 into special attack to give you your max special attack, and 252 into speed to give you your highest speed that you can get with a Modest Nature. As for the item, we're going to be using either a White Herb so that when Breakable Armor activates, you don't get the defense drop for the first time it activates, or we're going to be using a Life Orb so that we can do as much damage to your opponent as possible. As for the moveset, the first one listed is Weather Ball, which is normally a 50 base power special normal move, and normal type attacks are only resisted by Ghost, Rock, and Steel, so it's pretty good coverage to use. And if your opponent or you have set up Weather of any kind, Weather Ball will then become a 100 base power attack and be characteristic of the kind of weather that is up. And if you're curious about that, Sandstorm means Weather Ball will be a rock type move, Sunny Day will mean it will be a fire type move, and Rain Dance means it will be a water type move, and Hail will mean it be a ice type move, so in case you didn't know that already. As for the other move, or the next move, it is known as Ice Breath, and it is a new TM that is in this generation, and what it does is it always lands a critical hit. And it's only 40 base power, so with the critical hit it'll be doing 80, which is pretty close to what a normal stab move for an Ice-type Pokemon would be, which would probably be Ice Beam. Probably be Ice Beam. But the good thing about the fact that it always lands a critical hit is if your opponent is potentially having a Pokemon that is trying to set up defensively, the critical hit will obviously pass through all of the stat boosts that your opponent got to its special defense, and therefore be able to do standard damage to it, or whatever damage would normally be to it, as if it didn't have any of those stat boosts. So that's a really cool new move to utilize. As for the next move, it's either going to be Hidden Power Fire or Hidden Power Ground. The reasoning for Hidden Power Fire is because this Pokemon is essentially bait for Scissors Bullet Punch, because that will pretty much take it out because of how much damage it'll do, and because it's super effective. So having Hidden Power Fire would be a great move to have, since it'll be able to one-hit KO a Scissor. Hidden Power Ground, on the other hand, it just gives you better type coverage when it comes to attacking your opponent, because for the most part, everything that Ice can't hit for normal or super effective damage, Ground will be able to. So that gives you good type coverage when you're trying to do the majority, or do as much as possible with this set. And as for your last move, you're going to be using Rain Dance or Flash Cannon. That's what FC stands for. The reason for Rain Dance is to work in conjunction with Weather Ball, and because your opponent probably thinks, oh, okay, it's weak to fire because it's an ice type, so I'll bring a fire type Pokemon out to counter it. Well, since you have Rain Dance combined with Weather Ball, chances are you'll be able to do a hell of a lot of damage to whatever fire Pokemon wants to come in and try and take you out. As for Flash Cannon, it's just another move that this Pokemon can learn, and it will do special steel damage, which can come in handy at some point. But I'm not sure. I think Rain Dance personally works a lot better in combination with Weather Ball, and it's a little bit more unexpected since it is an Ice-type Pokemon. But as for this, or as for that, we are done with this video. So I hope you enjoy this new Pokemon. I think it's awesome that it looks like ice cream and it makes me hungry. But that's about it. So I will see you guys in my next video. So take care and goodbye.